Hello and welcome to Good Show. We are the podcast helping you answer what we would consider one of the most daunting questions when it comes to television. What am I watching next? I am Brandon Sharp.
And I'm Anthony Mako.
And on this episode of Good Show, we are discussing The Last of Us. This show follows Joel and Ellie, an unlikely pairing forced together by fate for a journey that will test them both down to the very fibers of their being. Nice and vague. The Last of Us was originally a monumental, genre-defining PlayStation game developed by Naughty Dog and released in June of 2013. It has a sequel, The Last of Us Part 2, but we're not going to worry about that today. And we're really not even going to worry about video games, because stories and themes that make good video games don't necessarily make good television shows or movies. Mortal Kombat, anyone? Warcraft? Tomb Raider? Anyone still talking about that Halo series that came out for Disney Plus last year? Not me. Anyways, I'm comfortable saying this formula usually doesn't work. Did it work this time? That's the main question here. The Last of Us was created for HBO by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann and aired for the first time in January of this year. And with that, Anthony, let's talk The Last of Us.
Let's talk about it. So Brandon, I have been
I'm just waiting over here.
I know. I've been so tight-lipped with my reaction to this show because I complained about it a fair amount early on. Didn't think I was going to like it, and then I complained about it, and then I pretty much just shut down. And I have not been talking to him about it for most of what I've watched. So I'm sort of messing.
I've never done that to you ever. Never have I done that to you.
No. First of all, I wasn't being malicious. I was trying to save the conversation for the episode. I'm not joking.
You could have given me a little something.
I honestly, I don't know if I knew how I felt about it until I still don't know if I know how I feel about it.
That's good news for me. There's time.
Listen, I would have
bring you over.
Yes. And if I didn't have this show and I wasn't trying to be a partner with you, then I would have been like, no, I don't want to watch this show. And no, I'm not going to keep watching this show. The whole time I would have given up many times, I think. That doesn't mean I didn't like this show, but it's just, first of all, we got to get there, but it's not my kind of show. I didn't even know if you want to start.
Question.
There, yes.
That's not a bad place to start.
Sure.
Question. Is this maybe the show you were dreading the most out of anything we've done? Can you think of anything that
there were
that you weren't looking forward to more than this?
This is an interesting example because, this one I had not seen at all and we knew we were doing an episode on it. That is rare. So I've usually probably seen it even if I didn't like it, or I have been slowly watching it and oh, okay, we'll do an episode on it. I guess the only other thing like this would be Stranger Things, probably.
Uh-huh.
But
yeah.
We knew because of how popular this was, we knew we were doing an episode on this from maybe you watched maybe 2 episodes and we're like, we're going to have to do an episode on this. And that's fine. I was on board to do the episode.
Yeah.
I'm also excited to talk about it. I think there's a ton of stuff to talk about here. Right. And so it's not like I'm like, no, this show's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's just definitely not my kind of show. One of the funniest things that happened, I think, between us is that there's 2 things I do want to make fun of you about. Number 1,
good.
You said it's not a zombie show, which I do not understand. I'd like to come back and have that conversation because
put a pin in that because
okay, all right, we're gonna save it. All right,
I stand by that statement. By the way,
that's ridiculous. But anyway,
okay, all right, good.
Number 2 was it's nothing like The Walking Dead. So I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I gave you the benefit of the doubt on that, and then I watched several episodes, and finally I kind of came back and I was like, I don't understand how you don't think this is like The Walking Dead. It's almost exactly like The Walking Dead. And you were like, I only saw 2 episodes of The Walking Dead.
Here's my thing. I think this is appropriate now.
Yeah.
And maybe more later also.
Okay.
But everything I knew about The Walking Dead was this is a zombie show. That's everything I knew.
Yeah.
That was marketed as a zombie show. That was the main thing about that everyone talked about was the zombie of it.
Yeah. Sure.
And so I didn't see much. I saw a little bit of it. I kind of fizzled out pretty quick, but it felt very zombie heavy. And I think I would argue that this isn't zombie heavy, but I'm also not talking about time spent with zombies on screen. So I think I'm
okay. I'm not going to respond to that right now because you want to have that conversation later. So,
okay.
Because I disagree with you.
Just keep in mind that I'm going in a different direction when I say this isn't a zombie show.
Yeah, but you don't want to dig into that now, so I'm not going to press you to dig into it now. We will dig into it a little bit.
So what kind of show is this?
Zombie show?
Let's be a little more scientific here. We could say things like post-apocalyptic.
Yep.
It's suspenseful. It's a drama.
Yeah. Why is it suspenseful? What are you afraid of?
There's a lot of things that cause suspense.
Name one
in this show.
Like zombies?
I think, honestly, that's low on my list.
No, totally. It's not low on your list, but I would say it is even. So
if the list was like 3 things long, I think it would be number 3.
Well, what are the other 2? Other people, I suppose, sure, certainly. Which, I mean, that's what an interesting comparison here. That is where I can connect this heavily to The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead played with that issue a lot too, which was not only am I afraid of zombies, I'm also afraid of everyone else because I have to take care of myself. And that is a massive theme in this show. And it's a massive part of The Walking Dead. Although I'm talking a little less out of turn than you are, but I'm also out of turn because I gave up on The Walking Dead, I think, after 1 season. I just did not like it very much. I tried really hard because it was so popular. And okay, also I need to say though, at this point, this show is better than The Walking Dead. So when I make these So when I make these comparisons, I'm not saying that, it's bad like The Walking Dead necessarily, but it explores a lot of similar themes as The Walking Dead explored.
So we're getting into this now because there's no sense picking this back up later. I think what the thing that leaves, the thing that makes me differentiate this from a zombie show is, in this show, zombies feel like more of the setting. They're more of the backdrop.
Okay.
They're not the main conflict. To me, there's more internal conflict happening with Joel and his past and hate and getting, working through, and can I, care for this girl? Can I, love her? There's so much more happening with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's what all zombie shows explore.
Okay. That's not all.
Okay. So first of all, we did have to distinguish between
So my question is The Walking Dead actually not a zombie show?
Okay.
That's my question.
Well, the only zombie show I know is The Walking Dead. So I might be wrong in that sense. I very well might be wrong. And I also will give you that if you're talking about, what's his name? The guy that does all the cheesy zombie movies that are actually kind of funny. And
Bruce Campbell.
Yes, Bruce Campbell. All the Bruce Campbell shows.
And Simon Pegg, like Shaun of the Dead. And
the comedy, Shaun of the Dead.
The Zomcoms. Those are zombie also.
Right. So no, it's not like that for sure.
Okay.
So if I didn't even know exactly what a zombie show is. And all I'm trying to say is I don't like zombies. And I'll tell you some of the reasons I don't like zombies at all. So when I say, is it a zombie show? I mean, are there any zombies in it at all? And if the answer is yes, I call that a zombie show because I don't like that. And here's why. Number one, I'll tell you what I like about it first. Okay. So, and what this show does better than any I've seen, for sure, and it does a good job of it. But obviously, zombieism is not an actual threat to us, and we're not afraid of zombie shows because we think we're going to actually most of us aren't afraid we're going to turn into zombies. We are sort of afraid of the unknown, whatever, whether it's dystopian or end of the world stuff or a post-apocalyptic stuff, all that stuff. But then also, obviously, zombieism or zombiness can be translated as cancer, like this sort of existential threat that we don't quite understand yet. And it's this thing that just all of a sudden might, It's all around us. You
goodness.
don't know. You can't. It just keeps you on your toes all the time. You don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, so exploring that idea where you don't actually have to get into something triggering or something, something very deep for someone. The existential threat of all the issues that come with zombieism. I do like that part of it. And I do think this show did that very, very well. You consider how you could substitute a lot of things for zombieism in this show.
Yeah.
The thing I don't like about it, which is huge for me, massive, I'm not afraid of zombies. I'm not afraid of seeing them on the screen. They don't leave me in suspense. And so if you imagine, I don't know how you feel about that, but if you imagine going through this show, not just kind of sitting there like, oh, they're walking down a hallway now, and you're not worried about a zombie jumping out, those scenes are incredibly slow.
I don't know that like jumpy. That this show doesn't do jumpy though.
It doesn't do jumpy, but it tries to give you the sense that you're in suspense, that jumpy may happen. It gives you that sense all the time.
Well, I think it draws pretty clear lines between something could happen here, something's not going to happen here, which allows the viewer to settle into like more quality scenes with, like a square head, like like the right mindset, as opposed to like them creeping into like a new building or something. You're like, okay, something could definitely happen here. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like it allows the show to explore different elements, like suspense, like character building, and kind of like differentiate the two in different scenes.
Yeah.
And even sometimes different episodes,
Sure.
Sometimes whole episodes are more just like character building, storytelling, and then sometimes they're all action, suspense.
Yeah.
So I do feel like there was only maybe one time when I felt like, okay, this is a show, this is an episode I don't have to worry about anything happening, and something did happen. So I think that happened like once. It was later. It was one of the bottle episodes with the two girls.
Yep. I got you.
Anyway, so I do feel like it did draw pretty clear lines.
How'd you not see that coming, by the way? But no big deal.
Well, no. I didn't until I did. Like there was a part where like they kind of flashed, they kind of flashed to it, and you're like, okay, something's gonna happen now.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, it wasn't a complete surprise, but I agree that the zombies were not a main concern. And I also think we can.
So I would like to draw some nuance in that by basically saying like they are the main concern.
I don't think so.
Here's how they're the main concern. They are the thing that put everything else on steroids and bring all the issues to the surface, which I think is fair. But the issue of this show is, will I get bit by a zombie?
I don't think so.
It absolutely is. How is it not?
I think the issue is no matter what type of pressure is put on us, how do we respond? How do we treat other people? What are we willing to do to survive?
Sure, but when you take away,
I think it's literally just the pressure. And you have stated quite rightly that this could be substituted for any type of pressure.
Except this is the part I don't like about it. Except what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's not true in a zombie world.
When you survive, you just survive.
There is no survive. There's no hope of survival.
Ever.
No.
Well, I mean,
not with zombies.
When the show ends, like that universe ends for us.
Okay. And
we're obviously not going to spoil the ending, but there is survival if the show's over and people are still alive.
Yeah. But I'm saying the only people that survive are people that did not get bit by zombies.
Okay. How's that not okay? How's that not survival?
No, it totally is survival. I'm just saying
there's no prosperity after.
No. What I'm saying is, if it's a little obvious to me to take the most extreme example of a threat, and that is what everybody's faced with. I just find it more interesting to say, is the threat overcomable? Because the thing is, for the most part, for 90% of people, which is why there's nobody ever on the screen in this show, for 99% of people.
So that you're saying they can't ever beat it.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah.
It's just something that's impossible to win.
Yeah. So, I mean, actually I could go half and half on that. The part where you take everything and put it on all these human reactions and how we respond and all this stuff, all those conversations I do find interesting. Okay. So it puts you into like, what if you're faced with the most extreme, whatever choices you have to make in life, and all of a sudden you're faced with the saddest, possible outcome, and just like everything's, and how do you respond to that? And it's pretty similar to any other way that you can overcome that when it's a secondary issue to you. You can overcome that, or you can let it kill you or whatever, existentially. And so that's an interesting conversation, I think. But I don't like, okay, but if bit over, that's it. Like, I just don't find that terribly interesting. Not to mention, now that I'm whining,
what?
I think their science could use a little work in this show.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't think they're.
I was very annoyed the whole time because I don't think this is a spoiler. I don't think we've said a spoiler yet, even accidentally. Just so you know,
we're skimming, but
we're getting close. But
I agree.
We're trying really hard. But okay, so this also I don't think is a spoiler because you learn it so fast. But the zombieism is based on and you've probably seen something about this, but it's based on like fungus.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's get into the science of that then.
I'm not prepared for that conversation. I'll say that.
Well,
right
that's
away.
fine. But here's what I'm saying. I understand zombieism is normally that you get bit and you get a virus that then like bakes your brain or something like that. And I actually like the idea that like a fungus would want to evolve and grow and whatever, and blah blah blah, and take over a host and then take over the world. I don't understand how getting bit transfers a fungus. I would have preferred that the zombies come open their mouth and the fungus crawls into the other person or something like that. But I don't understand how getting bit passes a fungus between somebody. Also, can you grow a fungus inside your body? I don't think the elements are correct for that.
Again, I have no idea.
Sorry. But that was rolling that around in my head the whole time. Like, that part bothers me. You don't pass a fungus that way. If it were like athlete's foot, if the zombies footed people to death, that'd be fine.
Since you've said this is a zombie show, I think one thing we can say about zombie shows is the science isn't always there.
Well, I can understand how a virus might be an issue.
You can't have it both ways, man. You want your science?
If you bite someone, they will get the virus, is what I'm saying. Saliva is how you pass. Saliva is not how you pass fungi.
How many people have you bitten? Like, how many people have you passed a virus to? I mean, like, you could, sneeze on someone, right? And pass a virus?
Sure.
There's lots of ways you can pass a virus.
Saliva is the point, though. Like, bodily fluids. You don't pass fungus through bodily fluids.
I think there were a lot of good things about the fungus. I don't know.
There were some good things about the fungus.
You could be right. It'd be hard. I have no idea if fungi could be passed through the blood. I mean, that's what I'm guessing is. I mean, that's the whole idea behind the bite with any other.
I guess we could have researched this a little bit. I've also drugged this on too long.
I think my point is there isn't anything to research here. This is a fictional story, and
yeah. I'm just saying it bugged me personally. I'm not saying it was.
Well, that's fine.
I'm not judging the quality of the show based on that. I'm just saying I just kept thinking that over and over again. I'm like, this doesn't seem to check out. So it bothered me a little bit, but go ahead.
Well, the show, if nothing else, looks great, right?
Yeah, it does look great. Yep. Very good.
Now, you have said, I mean, you have said you're not a huge fan of the dystopian, post-apocalyptic look, just everything being destroyed.
I do, right, except I do, this show's outside a lot, which I do really, really like.
I think that does change. I mean, that does put like almost like a fresh coat of lacquer on something that's post-apocalyptic for sure.
And I think they did a good job with the passing of time because so basically something happens, and once again, not a spoiler, I don't think, but something happens, and then we jump ahead by 20 years, something like that.
Sure, yeah.
I think it was like 2003 to then current.
It's it's a significant amount of time.
Anyway, the point is, I really enjoyed the way they went through like what would have happened in these 20 years. And like, I liked that there were plants growing up out of the road and over top of cars and like different things like that, where like nature had taken back over in a lot of these places. And so I feel like they played that all out very, very well. And I liked how it looked because it was also outside a ton, which was very nice. Yeah.
I think I liked the fact that, some of the shows I've seen where there would be like a similar thing happen, you'll have like the event happens and then there's like however many years of like just rioting, looting, destruction, fires, killing. I liked that we kind of got past all that and we're telling like a different story now.
Sure.
Like this is people have started to rebuild. Some type of like societal structure has been implemented. We're going from there.
I like that too.
So that is another thing that differentiates it from a lot of those typical post-apocalyptic shows to me, or
I actually also
post-event shows.
Sure. And I also love that they they didn't ignore it, but they sidestepped the question of like one of the biggest questions that gets explored in these sorts of things is, will the government become totalitarian? And they did answer that question a little bit, but like you said, they sort of jumped past it and they answered it from a past perspective. I'm just not like that question has been asked and answered so much. It's like sometimes I use a dystopian show to talk about government overreach or something like that. And I just don't like that. That's played out a bit and they don't do that here, which I really, really appreciated. It's a part of the conversation. It's sort of a past part of the conversation. It's a part of the history of the show. Yeah. But it's sort of it's mostly ignored. And they're like, well, we're dealing with what we got. It doesn't matter what happened or what they chose to do. We're dealing with it.
Yeah. And I think I do feel like we end up a lot of times at the same place. Lots of power was given to government to make hard decisions. Yeah. I think in the show they bombed certain areas.
Totally. Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that.
But I'm saying we didn't watch that happen over. Like,
you're right.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That was being told.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. That's fine. That's probably what would happen. Sure. Fine. Like I'm not saying that's what
I think it does still allow the conversation to happen, though.
Yes,
I think it does bring that up, and anyway.
Yeah. I just don't need to watch that play out. That's what I'm saying. It's been played out so many times that I don't need to watch that play out. I'd rather have different conversations. So it's probably worth mentioning right now. Sorry, before you move on, it's probably worth mentioning. I think we're going to talk about it more later, but one of my reactions to this show is it felt very video gamey.
In what way?
The way it was shot. It was shot like a video game would be animated.
Like, not
close ups.
Yeah. So like
walking behind, like walking down a hallway, a very close
third
up
person.
Yes.
Okay.
That sort of thing.
I'm tracking.
Different things like that. Which it's based off a video game, so that's fine. I'm not commenting on whether it was good or not. I just was watching, thinking, oh, this is like I'm watching a video game. It was very much.
And that may have been intentional. I didn't pick up on that, but I like that observation though.
I've seen some comparisons on like online different things of like literal frames from the video game.
Oh yeah.
Against frames from the show.
Most of those
and they're almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love those.
But I mean, not in a cheesy way. I just think I just kept thinking, oh, you could tell this was intentionally made like a video game. The narrative of a video game.
Possibly made by a couple of video game fans.
Yeah, I mean,
we know,
I think they were at least huge fans of this particular game.
Yeah. Two main characters. So I want to start with not cameos, but supporting cast.
Yeah.
Who was maybe your favorite supporting actor, or maybe they popped up once in an episode?
Okay, so you mean
favorite?
So it's okay if they're just in like one.
I would say anybody except Joel or Ellie. Who was maybe your favorite?
So, and I want to couch what I just said in. That could have been you could be nervous that what I just said was a spoiler. It's not, because Joel moves through different communities, and so just because somebody's in one episode doesn't mean I've declared what's going to happen to them. I just want to give that
not
warning.
at all.
I made a comment. You might think, oh, if I mention they're in one, that means they die. I'm not saying that. Joel moves through some different areas. He's like traveling across the country, so he'll see different people at different times. So it's not a spoiler.
Not a spoiler.
And also, I love Nick Offerman. He was really cool in this. I loved seeing him. He's early on. Their episode is great. He was really good. I really, really liked Lamar Johnson and Kevon Woodward. I liked that cameo. That was a really, really good one.
Henry and Sam. Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, one of my very favorites, it's relatively small, but for some reason, love Graham Greene. And it's probably going to take you a second to realize who that is because it's not a very big part, but I liked what he did in the show, but I always love him. He's in the movie Maverick.
Okay.
He's like one of the guys that would be in like Reservation Dogs because
he's native. He's a native.
Yeah, American, he's right? Often the token native in a show. But I loved one of the things I loved was the perspective Joel runs across them, him and his wife, and they're in a cabin out off in the middle of nowhere.
They're real funny too.
And they're funny, but also they're basically like not concerned. They haven't had to change much about how they live. It's like how they've always lived. It's not a big deal because they just kind of live off the land and it's not a big deal. They love it. But I always like whatever he's in. So he popped up and I was like, that's a great surprise. I really like him. So probably those top my list of cameo people. Yeah.
I think a couple others that would be worth mentioning. Melanie Linsky plays Kathleen when Joel and Ellie are in Kansas City. I mean, she's great. She's kind of the leader there.
She's interesting.
She does a really good job. The guy paired with Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman plays a guy named Bill, and he has a partner named Frank Murray Bartlett from The White Lotus. I might add. He was good in this, though. I liked him a lot.
Pretty good, yeah.
I liked him a lot in this. I liked Bill and Frank's episode quite a bit. Yeah, those are the big ones. And
I'll add, that's like I was hating the show, honestly, got to episode 3, and that's where the turn started to happen.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, was it like really heavy zombie stuff before that? Is that what was going on? Making you hate the show.
Just bored. I was bored.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't bored one time. Not one time.
Well, I mean, it's okay that we like different kinds of shows.
I totally agree. But when this happens, I think it's worth unpacking a little bit, like.
I also like, I happen to be watching it with somebody I live with. I was like, hey, I got to watch this thing for the podcast. You want to watch it with me? And she made it less time than I did. Like she was like, yeah, you can finish without me. I don't care.
Yikes. It's interesting though, because a lot of people like this show. And
of course. I'm not putting a judgment on that.
No. But usually you have the hot picks and I have the dusty spy thrillers. But every now and then.
I've been known to not like something that's popular.
Every now and then I have my finger on the pulse with whatever. I guess it just has to be like fantasy or sci-fi related.
Sure.
Or horror. Horror's the other one. Apparently I'm a big horror guy.
Zombies.
Whatever, man. Whatever I got to do to get an episode that people like.
Yeah, we're begging at this point.
So you've said the story moves slow in certain parts.
Certain parts, yeah. Hold on. So we're saving Joel and Ellie?
Saving Joel and Ellie, yeah. I got to save something for the second half because we dipped in pretty hard.
Okay, all right. No, I just want to make sure I wasn't going to miss it. That'd be huge to miss.
No, I got them slated for later.
Yeah, cool.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss any characters.
Sure.
And because I think it would be easy to miss other characters in a show like this because Joel and Ellie are like the big deal. So
course,
anyway, you've said that the story moves slow. Do you feel like it would just move slow the whole time, or do you feel like there was? But you've also said, coupled with the fact that the suspenseful parts you didn't like because they were usually zombie suspense parts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually wondering now how you got yourself through this.
Well, I had to. I didn't have a choice, so I didn't really think. No, that's a legitimate answer. The reason that's a legitimate answer is because I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking, like, should I stop watching this? Because I didn't have a choice to do that. So
you could have spent a lot of time thinking, I want to stop watching this.
I had some of those moments, but there are some moments that would have kept me coming back. I think it gets better toward the later you get.
Yeah.
And it's worth mentioning that I just like interpersonal relationships, and there's just not a ton of that in this show. So, and even the interpersonal relationship takes forever to sort of come to fruition.
Table that
sure.
for a second, because I think there is going to be something to talk about with Joel and Ellie, and like contrasting a show, that would have like a Stranger Things, where there's more of a group element.
Sure.
Two big flashback episodes that disrupted our storyline a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Two that I can think of, at least, that came to mind when I was typing this out.
Yeah.
Did they do their job? Meaning, did they flesh out that part of the story well enough to disrupt not the timeline, but like our progression forward? We're moving along, something and we get a couple of flashbacks. Did they feel good? Did they feel like they were earned in there?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to sort of pause for a second and have I can think of the mall one. What's the other one you're talking about?
Frank and Bill is another one.
Oh, that's you're considering that flashback? Okay,
I think because it's literally a pause from our main characters. It's maybe like it's lateral movement.
Sure,
but
sure.
We totally get away from the main character story for a whole episode almost.
Sure.
So I would consider that something of a bottle episode. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think, I would call episode 3, like with Frank and Bill, like just generally beautiful, a beautiful episode of television.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, honestly, how much it served this show, because it was like it's okay, but it was like a different show all of a sudden. There wasn't a lot of interaction, and it was dealing with different issues than we had dealt with up until that point. Because they had some solutions, different things like that, where you weren't concerned about some of the stuff you were concerned about before. So it was a whole different thing. So I'm not sure.
It may not have served the main story.
Yes, and I feel like that's what you were asking me, so that's what I'm trying to that's what I'm trying to answer. I feel like we left the story altogether and watched a play that was beautiful. Like, it was awesome. I loved it.
Like, I don't think they kind of assist Joel and Ellie, and I don't think we needed their whole story just for the assist.
Exactly right. That's sort of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think, though, it was so good, at least in my mind, that I really loved it.
I agree.
I will say, I think it's a pretty big divergence from the game. I haven't played the game. I've been told about the game a lot. I mentioned early on that the reason I wanted to watch this so much was because I didn't ever think I could make it through the game. And I was really interested in the story.
I know that, Bill is a character in the game.
No. Yeah, they're definitely real. Both of them are real characters. Okay, cool. I don't know that the game actually plays it out like that. And in fact, I think I think it's a bit more tragic. Bill and Frank. I think their story's a bit more tragic in the game. I thought it was just like icing on top. Like, it just really added a lot to the show.
I agree. Just not in a functional way.
Yeah. Which to be fair was my question. So anyway, then there was the mall episode that actually maybe served the story. It
served the story, but I don't feel like we needed the whole episode on it.
Probably not.
So it's certainly, we needed some of the information we got, but I was just like, let's get back to the story now.
Yeah. And I didn't love that episode as much as I liked the Frank and Bill episode.
Yeah.
So, the writing here, the dialogue, serviceable or good? What do you think?
Good.
I thought it was really good.
Yes.
I loved the exchange.
I like how you keep giving me options and then like trumping me. You're like, you're serviceable or good. And I'm like, good, trying to give you a little something here, and then you're like, I thought it was really good.
That's what happens when I host. I get to do that.
All right, like bomb dropped.
Well, I like this. No, I didn't mean to do that on purpose.
I know.
But I will say, I think the exchanges between Joel and Ellie felt especially natural. And I think that was
natural. Is a good word. Yes.
I think if it needed to work anywhere, it was there. that was like a linchpin as far as dialogue goes.
Also, like there's not a lot of opportunity for good dialogue. There's a lot of quiet in this show. And
it's a lot of walking. It's like the road, right?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
like the road.
Yeah. But so basically you have to take advantage of it when you can, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
So very good, I thought.
So in my mind, the pièce de résistance is Joel and Ellie in their relationship. Mentioned quickly that their dialogue felt natural, but was it believable to you? Did it feel earned? Like, did enough time? Did it feel like enough time passed to where they would have grown into this relationship? And was there anything you bumped on with them?
I think the only thing I bumped on was I feel like their relationship advanced late in the show. It was pretty cold for a long time. And then it heated up. Heated up is a misleading word, but basically
that's actually an inappropriate word.
I know. That's why I don't mean it in that way.
Okay. All right.
But I said cold, and then hot would be the opposite of it. So I don't mean, that's all I mean.
They warmed up to each other.
Yeah. Warmed up. Well, yeah. They warmed, but late. I felt like it took a really long time. And then now here's the thing, like in the narrative, it makes sense because a ton of time passes and they just kind of skip, which you have to do in this show. I forgive all of it because I think it worked fine, but I do feel like it was late and a little bit. I was like, oh, all of a sudden we're fine. It's like,
yeah, I think those things felt specific to events. I feel like certain events helped them.
Yep, that's fair.
Progress more. Like we do see a big chunk of Joel and Ellie early on, and it's pretty like also time. Not a lot of time has passed, and he's pretty. Yeah, you're right. He's pretty cold with her. He doesn't really trust her. He doesn't, and then you're right. But I think significant things had happened. Sure. Enough of them, and one big one. One big thing. And then I think on the other side of that, we do see some warmth finally. And, I mean, it's quite a payoff in my mind. It was, I don't know, some really special stuff there at the end. So,
yeah.
Pedro Pascal, A+, right?
Yeah. Here's
Bella Ramsey.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I cannot, like, for all the poo-pooing I do, I'm sort of obsessed with Pedro Pascal, and I was ready to not be, only because everybody else was so obsessed with him. He's so good. He is so good.
You're giving me chills right now because I feel it. I feel all of it.
Yeah, he is so good, and really, really good. Also, very. What is that? What's the word for that? You want to like him so bad. Which is funny for, that sort of character, but like you just badly feel this like urge to.
You're drawn to it.
Yeah, you're drawn. Yeah. Also, Bella Ramsey, incredible. Very, very good.
Do you remember her from Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the only other thing I had seen her in.
Yeah, totally.
I thought she was a great choice for this.
She was a great choice for this. So
she's got enough of like the girliness, but also. She pairs well with an adult.
Yep.
She's mature, she's young, but she's clearly mature. Like she's got some maturity there.
Yeah. So obviously that relationship can save the entire show for me, and it did. Like that's why in the end I'll say, I mostly enjoyed watching this show, and that's because they're both incredible. I also just a small side note, but. I thought it was kind of because Bella Ramsey is kind of like a unique looking person, not in a bad way, just kind of unique.
Sure. Yeah.
It looks like Ashley Johnson could be her mother. I had to look up whether Ashley Johnson was her actual mother, the person that like plays her mother.
Yeah. And Ashley Johnson voices her in the game.
Oh, yeah. I saw that somewhere.
You did see that. Okay.
But
that's I agree. That's an interesting take.
Because they're both sort of unique looking people. I just thought the casting was incredible on that, just because I was like, how in the world, did they do that? Anyway, just those two. Yeah, for sure. Pedro Pascal kept me in it the whole time, even in the times where I was hating it, I was still like, well, I got to see what happens to Pedro.
I mean, I think the important thing here to mention is if they're not working for you, this show doesn't work.
Of course. Yes.
You're call it quits, because I think everything kind of, and I think that's the same with the game. I think that's the whole thing here. Their relationship is what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's special. I think it's unique. I don't think you see this a lot in television shows.
I'm going to also say the way, the psychological reason for a child and an adult to connect in such a strong way is well-founded in this show. I don't know how to say that without ruining things. So, but it seems ridiculous that like you would have a buddy show with a child and an adult and even just these two different kind of people, but that all makes sense. All the psychology of all of it totally works. So like that bought the show a lot of credit with me. The fact that all that worked out, that narrative was good. And yeah, so that was huge for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't say it any better than that. I really enjoyed seeing them do their thing on screen. And yeah, just shifting gears a little bit here. I feel like there were 2, maybe 3 decently harsh or rough scenes over the course of this season. Without getting too specific, I don't want to spoil anything, even though that might not be the worst thing because there's no trigger warnings or anything like that. Did anything feel like a gut punch to you? Like, oh, what did I just watch?
Yeah, sort of, but I think I was expecting it so much that it didn't bother me. I mean, like, you're going to have, there's certainly gory elements.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm really necessarily talking about the gory stuff.
Sure.
Show deals with suicide.
Yep.
Some.
Yep.
And I think that not necessarily didn't feel like the gut punch, but that's a strong subject. I think that would be triggering for a lot of people.
Yeah, and also based on, maybe I was just thought of a way I could potentially say this without spoiling, but based on like the genre, you have to understand that some people are going to have to make choices to kill people that they wouldn't choose to kill, which is very difficult to watch. And so that's probably worth mentioning. But basically, like, turning
that actually, yeah, that would be the other thing I'm talking about. Yeah. So that's a good way of putting that.
But I feel like, so for me at least, I feel like that's what you're signing up for when you watch a show like this. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so certainly watch out for it. It's worth, you're right to bring it up.
It's definitely worth keeping an eye out for. There are some things that, yeah, will just blindside you. So we're pretty, recent off of a pandemic of our own. Yeah. How did the timing of this show, I mean, how did it sit with you? Knowing that we weren't into this territory, but we were into something,
Yeah. I feel like, I guess the only way I could say this is, I think you would have thought a show like this might be able to help someone process a pandemic. Like it's meant to, I think it's meant to help you, like zombie shows generally, or whatever this is meant to help you process grief, and also meant to help you process a world that's not totally controllable. All of those sorts of things, randomness and all this, it's there to help you process through these sorts of things. I don't feel like it does that for me.
Okay.
Because of the extreme elements of it. So there is, and even just like death generally, this show is probably supposed to help you process death. And I don't feel like it helps. This didn't help me get it, process that at all. But I also wasn't like, kind of using the trigger language. I wasn't triggered about COVID. I don't even know why, because there were certain points where I was like, are they just trying to talk about COVID here? I know they weren't, because, it's older than that, but
yeah.
Well, I was sort of like, the thing I actually wondered was it basically like, Is it like we had The Walking Dead and then we had COVID and then it was like, okay, now is it time to revive one of these now that something like this has actually happened? Like,
right.
Not that they wrote the story based on COVID, but then like, oh, maybe something like this would work out. And it has obviously, so it's obviously resonated. But for whatever reason, I don't feel like it, probably just because generally speaking, there's a difference between, it's an interesting question, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it out loud, but there's a difference between something that will kill you, which is dangerous and scary and all that stuff, and something that will turn you against, I think the real people. Everybody else. Yeah. And the issue with zombie shows is that like the real horror is that you might potentially be against whoever, you're whoever you're with at the moment. And then all of a sudden they turn on you and they're completely against you and there's nothing you can do to stop that.
Yep.
So that doesn't translate to coronavirus at all. That part of it,
right.
At least.
Yeah, you're right.
But obviously any sort of pandemic is dealing with death and randomness and stuff like that. So that potentially is helpful, but for whatever reason, it didn't help me. What about you? I mean,
I was a little, I don't know, triggered is not the right word, but I was a little, seeing some of the scenes early on with what society and government, what shape that had taken. I think that is something that was jarring for me. I think because not to get political, I feel like easily we could have gone in a direction like that. Not to that extreme, but I feel like things could have transpired to where we were in more of a police type state.
Yeah. It's probably worth mentioning that like China was way more like that than we were.
Yeah.
But I also think it's worth noting that some people do think we were there or we were in the beginning stages of that. I don't, but some people,
I mean, cause we're talking about things like mask mandates, and this was like, they were bombing parts of cities and stuff like that. Yeah. Like there is a chasm between where we were and what was happening here. I just think there are like some things that felt familiar, not necessarily.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's all. It was a little jarring. The disease, virus part. No, it felt different enough to where I didn't, bump on that really, or, it didn't affect me. But I do think one thing that's interesting is 2020, you did, most viewed streamed shows or movies during that time. And it was things like Outbreak, Contagion, 28 Days Later. Like people were just like, devouring stuff like this, which that's not in my nature. Like I'm like happy rainbow roses, strawberry fields, please. Like I don't want to think about this kind of stuff when it's happening. So it was far enough a remove for me where I was, it felt totally fine. So
yeah, totally.
Are you in for season 2?
I'm not sure yet. I think.
Did you watch something great or did you not?
Interesting question.
Because I think I watched something great. And I agree with you that this is not my typical cup of tea. And I meant to bring this up earlier, but I think there are certain things that I won't gravitate towards, but there are certain, like with Stranger Things, I don't really do horror. Mm-hmm. I don't really do zombie, but if I'm watching something I perceive to be great, I will put up with a lot of stuff in my way, like zombies, like horror.
I think if we think about the things that, if I compare this to other things that we've talked about, sort of like recent TV, I'd rank this pretty high, I suppose.
Okay.
Compared to some other recent TV that we've watched, and even in things I've been asked to watch that I wouldn't have necessarily chosen myself, I would rank this, certainly better than The White Lotus. And,
that's not saying much.
I enjoyed it more than The White Lotus. My thing with season 2, It's interesting to know that there's another video game or another, I don't know how you, another episode of the video game or whatever. How
a sequel
to the video game. Because that probably means there's some story fleshed out, but
it's worth noting that this ended before the second game. Like they didn't make choices in the first game based on the fact that they knew there was a second game coming.
Interesting. So I think there's some finality to the end of this season.
Yeah.
Which I think could be problematic for season 2. I think I can't say anything else that I want to say about that without spoiling the whole thing.
I'm going to leave it alone. Yeah.
So I'm going to need something to get me interested in the next narrative, which doesn't seem obvious at this point based on how it ended. How's that?
I think that's great. I think it's great.
I'd like to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, so wait. Number one, I'd like to wrap up. I feel like I've talked a lot, and I probably, because I don't tend to like this type of show. It's whatever I think zombies are, I thought that was this, and so I didn't tend to like this type of show. Since I poo-pooed it a lot, I will say there's a strong chance you will enjoy yourself watching this show. And it is a good show, and it's better than I thought it was going to be, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. How about I'll just stop trying to beating around the bush. I enjoyed watching this show. So I do want to say that before I leave what I'm saying, because I talk so much. I think the fact that I don't like these sorts of things necessarily allowed me to be more critical of it and more analytical about it.
Sure.
And I'm not being emotional about like, oh, this was awesome. I didn't have a lot of those moments, but I did enjoy it. I want to say that. So I want you to tell me, like, why did you love it so much? Because you haven't had a chance to do that yet. And like, I feel bad that I've sort of railroaded you on that. Like, you should have a chance to say why you enjoyed it so much, because I think that's fair to know.
Okay. I mean, just for the record, I feel like I've said,
yeah, totally.
I don't feel like I left anything on the table.
But you responded to my things a lot. So like you were responding to my accusations.
You took me great places though. I feel like, just kind of start to finish, I was interested in the story because I knew it was an amazing video game. I love video games. I knew that it wasn't going to be quite my thing. I knew that I was going to have to endure some stuff.
Yeah.
But I was okay with that because I was just fascinated with what this story could be about that just took the video game scene by storm. What on earth? How good is this story? And I think I always felt glued. I never felt like it had to, like, I'll go into a lot of shows and the show has to win me over. I felt like I was always on Team Last of Us. So I don't know that, like, my voice isn't the one that, like, I love the voice of dissent though, because that's the most important here. I think by and large, people are loving this show and it's important for the critical take. I think that's the important thing here. They won me over, you know, so I'm kind of the vanilla opinion here.
Yeah.
But I think the greatest thing about this is the relationship between Joel and Ellie and their acting and their scenes together. I think there's a lot of other good stuff. I think the suspense is good. Even though I'm not really a zombie person, I did feel enough suspense. I will say, I'm glad I didn't have to binge this show like you did, because I needed a break. I needed a week in between each episode. I needed that. This isn't the type of show that I could, like, I was just out of breath, exhausted after an episode, you know? So like, but I always felt, the blood boiling a little bit. Like I never felt like, what's going on? You know, like I always felt really engaged in the show.
I do think I watched this show. I didn't binge it. I watched it at a really good pace, which was basically one episode per day, every day.
Oh, that's a good pace. Yeah, that's a good pace.
I didn't watch like 3 in a row. I couldn't do that.
A lot of the episodes we've done, it will be like, I'll finish up the season, like the day we're going to record.
Yeah.
And that'll be like 5 episodes or something. And yeah, it just,
which I did. I mean, I just watched the last one. We both just watched the last one today, or you may have watched it last night.
Yeah.
But it just came out.
This show ended yesterday
to us. Yeah.
And, I love when we did this with Rings of Power. I absolutely love.
I do too. It's so much more fresh.
I think it turns out great.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone has enjoyed this conversation. Yeah. But thank you for sticking in there with me.
Yeah. I wasn't like torture fest. That's fine.
I know, but I feel like I've really raked you over the coals this season. I do feel that way a little bit. I know you're okay. I do know you're okay. Or else sometimes. I wouldn't ask you to do it. I mean, and hey, dealer's choice next time, whatever the weirdest, darkest comedy.
We'll see. All right. We'll see.
You got up your sleeve sitcom. Let's have it. All right. Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right, Anthony, what have you been watching this week besides The Last of Us?
Yeah, not a lot because I've been watching The Last of Us. So I'll hit them all real quick. I'm up to date on Shrinking, just phenomenal after phenomenal after phenomenal. If you haven't gotten on board with this yet, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Every time there's an episode, I'm like, not a lot's happened. Then there's like a whammy, and it's like another good one.
Yeah.
Every time.
It is manipulative a little bit, but whatever. I
love it though. Yeah. I want it.
I think I'm one behind on Poker Face. Poker Face continues to sort of amaze me. I think it's a really cool show.
Mm-hmm.
Very different, lots of different stuff. Anyway, okay. I finished Drive to Survive. Like I said, I think last week it was like, I'm getting a little bored of the story.
This season wasn't great.
Yeah.
It felt like what I really loved about season 4 was the battle for first place. There was like so much, it was suspenseful, like, ooh, one wrong turn here. But this was like a foregone conclusion early on.
Yep.
And I don't know that doesn't lend itself well to sports, no. Like, I don't know that like that. They had to find other ways to tell stories. And like I said before, Toto says really early on, what you guys do here is closer to Top Gun than it is a documentary. Right. And I think they have to really get in there and mix it up with editing to make it more interesting sometimes. And that's not awesome. It's just not, it seems fake. You can tell when they're trying
when it's artificial. Yep.
When they flash to someone and they're like, and it's like that guy, that was probably with something else.
Or totally different conversation or a dramatic pause. It's like they filmed that 5 days ago. That was
I can't with some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I still like the show.
I did too. I liked it too. It just didn't hit me the same this time.
Yeah.
And then I think I've already mentioned that. I did check. The one thing I did check out, I think that was new was I checked. There's a show on Apple TV Plus that's trying to do what the rest of them are doing. It's called Real Madrid Until the End. And it's Real Madrid is basically the most popular soccer team in Spain. And the thing is though, I don't want to make this claim completely, but it's pretty close. In the 2010s, Real Madrid was the best soccer team in the world. They won the UEFA Champions League like 3 or 4 times in that period of time.
Well, didn't they had who was
Ronaldo
on the team?
Was on there. But also they still have like Benzema is one of the best players in the world now. Like but I mean, what's interesting about soccer is just like, that's way off here. He's not in the Premier League. So he's not like, but then you have the UEFA Champions League. So these guys do mix it up a lot. Anyway, we'll see on this one. It's not the same because it's not by the same company. So obviously Apple TV was trying to throw their hat in the ring. They have contracted that company to do an MLS show. The Drive to Survive company. So there's going to be and this is not the same company.
Multi-teamed or?
I think it's going to be multi-teamed, but that's because they want a bunch of teams to be popular so people will get the season pass, obviously. So it'll be
hey, listen, I'm fine with motives, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
As long as we're, the live golf thing that we've talked a little bit, how the Full Swing was a little propaganda for PGA.
Yeah.
As long as I know,
it was really good though, for sure.
I loved it. Yeah. I still loved it.
So I checked it out. I think it'll be a wait and see. I'll let you know. It's just not quite as good as the other ones that we've watched. So we'll see what happens. But it's worth noting that that's like the best team of the last 15 years. So that's an interesting element. Obviously, I will also say I'm about to rewatch Ted Lasso because it's about to come out. So I'm going to try and rewatch the whole thing by the time it comes out, which is insane, but we'll see.
I'm on that too.
Okay. Then also I'm, for whatever reason, been rewatching Community, and it just has reminded me, my gosh, I'm just going to make you watch the whole thing. That's going to be mine.
I started it.
I know you started, but you got to, I told you.
In my defense, when I make you watch a show, it's 1 season. When you make me watch a show, 9.
There's not 9 seasons of Community, but also.
How many is there?
I think there's they have
14.
They have a joke about that in the show. I just don't remember what it is. Something like 3 seasons of the movie or something like that. But there's there's like, they kept getting canceled. They got canceled all sorts of times. So they couldn't keep the show on. But anyway, season 1, if you just watch season 1, the problem is, did you watch 1 episode?
I haven't watched it since I talked to you.
So 1 episode you've watched.
Sounds right.
That's not fair. That's not.
I haven't made up my mind on it.
I know you haven't. I'm just saying, when I say I think you will like it, it's not because of the first episode.
I understand that. Okay, no one's first episode is amazing unless you're the West Wing. I mean,
the first like,
or the Newsroom, anything else, Aaron Sorkin.
But season 1 is just generally brilliant. And season 1 doesn't even have some of the best episodes, but generally speaking, season 1's brilliant. Anyway, I just picked it back up. It's such a nice thing to just pop on in the background and just chuckle constantly. But it's, Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, by the way, in the Drive to Survive, Real Madrid Until the End vein, we got a recommendation for Breakpoint on Netflix. It's like those.
Okay.
It's about tennis.
Right.
That was from Sam Kokenauer.
Yeah.
So might be worth checking out.
Yeah, I've heard of the show because it's the same company. So that's great. Yeah.
Cool.
I'll check it out. I'm not generally as interested in tennis, especially now.
I actually am. So I think I would like it.
But now that Federer is not as good, I just loved Federer. So now that he's not as good, I'm a little less interested. Anyway, I still will check it out. This might get me back into it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I watched the Chris Rock Netflix special.
Was that the one that was only live?
What do you mean only live?
You had to watch it live?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Is that something with him? Like he has a special?
I didn't hear.
Okay, you don't have to look it up right now. I'm just curious. I thought he had one that was like on Netflix, but you had to watch it live while it happened.
Well, that wasn't this.
Okay,
so I don't know. Anyway, it was really good. He talks a little bit about the Will Smith stuff, and I mean that's obviously a big draw. It's the first time he's talked about it at all. Anyway, he waits till the very end, so you got to watch the whole thing to. But anyway, I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I mean that's pretty much the only new thing I watched. I'm current on The Mandalorian. It weren't for a good season. I would love to trick you into watching that show somehow. I feel like I've maybe used all of my capital.
You haven't lost any capital by making
on The Last of Us,
no,
but
you haven't.
I think if we ever went back to Disney Plus, it would have to be for The Mandalorian. Shrinking. I'm going to end up liking Mayor of Kingstown at the end of this. I think they've done a couple interesting things here at the end, and they're asking some decent questions.
We have a CBS show coming up soon, and I'll have to get it to watch that, and so I'll also check out Mayor of Kingstown when that happens.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it for me, and that's it for us.
That does it for this episode of Good Show. Good Show is created, recorded, edited, and produced by Anthony Mako and Brandon Sharp. Our theme music was written and recorded by me, Anthony, and all our graphics and socials are developed by Brandon. If you've enjoyed your time with us, please make sure to like or follow us on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you appreciate our show, please throw us a rating and a review there too. If you'd like to discuss any of our content, you can search the Good Show Facebook group or follow us on Instagram at The Good Show Podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.